there was this inherent sense that there was something wrong with me, being of this persuasion. And the culture seemed to reinforce that. And what I took from that was that if well, number one, I chose a profession which created an opportunity for me to serve. In some ways, I've thought of myself in education. I've thought of myself very much as a servant to the public. I thought of myself as almost in a ministerial way to children and to staffs that I supervised. And so my presumption was, if I did everything as close to perfect as possible, if I was the dedicated student and the one who performed at an extraordinary level in the classroom, the imperfection that I saw in myself would at least be covered to the world, be camouflaged to the world, maybe is a better word. And that through striving to be perfect, that imperfect part of Kent would no longer have the energetic draw on me that it has always had. And so within 2 years of my beginning my career in education, I was recognized for my expertise in working with children. I was pulled out of the classroom and started training teachers.
Oh, wow.
So it occurred very early on in my career to already be recognized within, it was in my third year, midway through my third year, I was pulled out of the classroom. And along with 3 other veteran teachers, the 4 of us took on the task of training an entire school district, every administrator, every teacher, every lay assistant, around instructional strategies with diverse learners. And that paved the way for a career then as an administrator in public ed. And again, all of that I see as, not all of that is about my orientation, but much of the energetic drive to keep stretching and increasing my performance was related to this truth about me that I couldn't allow.
Oh man. But yeah, you weren't actually out though the whole time. You were in education, right? You retired.
No, I was not out.
Yeah, okay.
And definitely I was not out.
Yeah.
I was working hard at being a good husband, a good father, and a good
Do you think even if later in life they would have done anything to you, if you had come out like 2 years before your retirement, would you have still been a little bit in fear?
That so my fear kept me in the closet.
Right.
I had the keys to that closet. I created the closet.
It's like that one lady's writing about her closet, showing herself.
Yeah. And Jillian and I had talked about that, about her closet keys article, and we had written those 2 articles separate from one another, but there were so many similarities in those 2 essays about it was a closet that each of us constructed. We put ourselves there. We were the only ones that could open the door. What I recognize now, Chad, is that as since I have come out and as I have reconnected with colleagues of mine from my past, back in the 70s, what I recognize that number one, there were other educational institutions where sexual diversity was more acceptable than this particular school district that I chose to work in. And certainly in this day and time, it's encouraging, one, to hear educators just entering the profession being able to do so as an openly gay man. I was with a friend just the other evening, and he was talking about this dear friend of his interviewing for a position in one of the metro area school districts. And as part of the interview, said, "This is who I am." And it was acknowledged, and he was selected for the principalship for that school.
Wow.
And so he hasn't had to enter into the agreements that I made with myself that put me in a closet. And I'm really encouraged that there are more options for people. Plus, I'm deeply concerned around homosexual students being able to have positive role models in the instructional setting. And what I have come to know over my work in education, and again, recognizing I was around at the time of Columbine, I was just beginning to exit my professional stint in public ed. And what I know, what research shows us, is that especially with the male population at the high school level, some 67% of '67, 68% of young men who are committing suicide at that age level are doing so around their not understanding their sexuality. And that is profoundly significant and something that educational institutions need to be responsive to. And I congratulate public ed for being more conscious and thoughtful in choosing an elementary principal, for example, who is openly gay, for encouraging gay teachers in a middle school setting, not to be flamboyant, but to be at least themselves, so that students have models to look to and people perhaps they can talk with. And I'm concerned that in the private sector of education, in those private institutions that are especially faith-based, there is more the culture that I grew up in. One that suggests that orientation can be prayed away, orientation can be changed under the right circumstances. And what I have realized at this point in my life, coming out, that sexual orientation is not a choice. There is no one in their right mind in this culture that would choose to be gay. It doesn't work in this culture. Orientation is just that, it's orientation. And you don't choose it.